Thanks to our singing group for the beautiful song. This, I take it, is because we have two birthdays. Huh? Is that the reason? Yesterday was the birthday of Swami Swahananda, and tomorrow is Swami Vijnanananda. Yeah. So this is a beautiful song written by Swami Premeshanandaji about all the disciples and direct disciples, householder disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Last month, I spoke on the topic Kali the Mother, one of Swami Vivekananda's most beautiful and haunting poems about his experience that he had when he was in Kashmir. Today's talk is a little bit of a follow-up on that. I'll be speaking about another poem that Swamiji wrote called My Play is Done. This is also a very, very beautiful poem. It was written in March 16th, 1895 in New York. Now, I'm mentioning the date because I think it's significant that this is in the middle of Swamiji's really active period, his first trip to the West. And still he's writing My Play is Done. So it's a poem that we would have thought would have come much later in his life, but he wrote it at that particular time. So this date is significant. It's a full 7 years before he passed away, and that was the real end to his play on earth. Now, we'll see this whole idea of my play is done. It doesn't have to be taken as I'm ready to leave this world. It can be that I'm ready to kind of retire from this role that I'm playing. It'll have both meanings, but it all revolves around this idea that when the avatar comes, the divine incarnation comes, that everything is kind of like a play, that all the different characters that are necessary for the play come along with the avatar, and they all have their special roles to play. And when we look at the life of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, we find this to be especially true. In Thakur's life, next to Holy Mother had the most significant role to play. After that, I think we would have to say Swami Vivekananda, because Thakur's life means his mission. It means why he was born, and he needed someone to spread his message. He needed Holy Mother to be a living example, and he needed someone like Swamiji who could carry his message throughout the world. So Swamiji is one of the main companions in this divine Leela of Sri Ramakrishna. And he knew he had a special role to play. Now, there's another curious fact. When did these special people know that everything is kind of preordained? When do they know and how do they know that they have a special role to play? At what point do they feel that they've completed that role, they're ready to step down? These are all very mysterious questions. We don't know exactly. Swamiji will find from the very beginning was a little bit reluctant to take on this role, but somehow part of this idea of Leela is that nobody has a real choice, that we're assigned these roles, especially during the life of the avatar. It may be true for all of us, but we find this very clearly in the Krishna Leela also, with Arjuna, especially with this Mahabharata, how he was so reluctant warrior to fight in the battle, and yet that was the role that he was born to play. And Sri Krishna does everything to convince him and then says, okay, I'm trying to convince you, but actually it is already all done and figured out that this is what you're going to do. This is your role to play. So it's something like that with regard to Swamiji and the part that he had to play in this Sri Ramakrishna Leela. We find that this sense of the Leela ending for Swamiji, that comes a couple of years after he wrote this poem. We see so many indications when he had his visit to Kashmir, And he had that experience in the Amarnath temple. And then when he went to Kir Bhavani, and Mother said, "Are you protecting me or am I protecting you?" So many different things took place in his life after that, that we start to see how gradually he seems ready to step down from this world stage and that Leela that he had to play. Still, he finished the play, he knew what he had to do, and when the time was right, he gave up everything. And this doesn't mean necessarily the time when he gave up the body, but we'll find that even after the first visit to the West, he was ready to turn over everything, that he didn't want to have any formal role in the Ramakrishna order. He wasn't the first president. The first president was Swami Brahmananda. So we can see this tendency that Swamiji had to cast off this role. It was a bit of a burden for him. And it all comes out in this beautiful poem that my play has done. Now, this whole concept of a play and how long we want to go on with it and the role that we have to play, it refers to all of us. That the poem is not just for those who come with the avatar, that we all have a significant role to play in life, and at some point we recognize that we're more than that particular role, and that we've been identifying ourselves with that play, the divine Leela, only the human Leela, that we've been considering ourselves a part of that. This happens with everyone. That sense of identification, we often talk about the sense of identification with the body, mind, and senses, but we do it with our occupation, we do it with our community, with everything else. So many different ways that we identify with this costume that we wear in this play that we're performing. I wanted to look at this idea of play, or Leela, from a few different points of view. Already we've seen that the life of the avatar, that this is a kind of play. Then we've seen that each one of us is like an actor on the stage. We have our own role to play in this lifetime. But this idea of Leela is very important from this cosmic point of view. How do we explain how this universe comes into existence? Sri Ramakrishna was very fond of this idea, that everything comes as Leela. It comes as a kind of play, and it has so many different connotations to it that we shouldn't take it too seriously, that at the end we'll all take off our costumes and everything will be okay again. There are a lot of different layers and textures to this whole idea of Leela. So we have this concept that this universe was created in play and as a play. So this gives a little bit of a whimsical nature to God. And in Sri Ramakrishna's case, very often he would talk in terms of the Divine Mother. That the Divine Mother, this is the sport of the Divine Mother, my mad Divine Mother, sometimes he would say. This whole universe is a crazy, mad sport of his mother Kali. He would use this type of language, that somehow the Lord has a mischievous streak and enjoys the play, that the whole universe is the playhouse of God, puts on a little bit of a show, and uses all of us as actors. This is how this play goes on, that we're just kind of puppets a little bit, and we're assigned our roles, and we have to play them. We have to play them well, but a time comes when we want to get rid of that. We want to cast off and be able to say that our play is done. So we can look at this as something playful, as something joyful. We can recognize it for what it is. We can partake in it and manipulate. We can ad-lib a little bit. If we know it's a play, and we don't take everything so seriously. Sri Ramakrishna talks about the expert dice player, that he can get whatever number he wants. He can cast his dice and get a 3 or 4, whatever he needs, and he'll never make a bad move. We make all the bad moves because we take it so seriously and we identify so strongly with it. We know it's a play, it's a little bit easier to enjoy it that way. Of course, it's not always a great enjoyment. We can look at it also as a type of bondage, that we have no choice, that we've been born into this particular role. This is a big existential theme, that how do we lead an authentic life, that always we're playing this game, this role of life, never knowing who we really are. So we get wrapped up in this play, and it can become something very painful. In the beginning, it seems to be very sweet and lovely. Sometimes we go for vacation, and we think, oh, everything will be so wonderful. We go to the beach, and then after a while, we find that the bed is full of sand, and it's lumpy, and we get the bad sunburn, and we can't wait to get out of it. We're ready to go back home. So this is that theme, that the play is over, not just that we want to give up this body and end this life. That's too escapist, but we want to go back home somehow. So this idea, it can help us enjoy this world. We can look at it from a great distance, enjoy the play, or it can give us a great sense of world weariness and vairagya, and that we don't want to play anymore, that there's a sense of bondage. The bondage is from this ignorance, not knowing who we really are. We get so identified with this role that we play that we don't know who we are. I remember years ago, there was a play written by the great French philosopher Sartre. It was called Keane. It was about a very famous actor on the French stage. And he was so good at acting that whatever role he played, he was 100% that role. He could identify with it so intensely that was his full identity. But it turned out that when he wasn't playing a role, he didn't know who he was. No sense of identity whatsoever. He had to be playing that role. So for some of us, this is the same thing. There are many people that their whole life, their span is a doctor, a lawyer, an electrician, this and that. They retire, they don't know who they are. That's the role that they played for a whole lifetime, and in retirement, they don't know who they are. They don't know what to do, how to identify with themselves. So most of us will have this little nagging feeling that this is not who I really am. I really want to know who I am. I don't want to go through life just playing this role, that I want to be able to go back to my own real home. You remember the song that Swamiji sang when he first went to Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar. Mono cholo nijo nikitoni. That I don't want to live in this world as a foreigner wearing foreign dress. I want to go back to my own real home. And Thakur told the story of the maid servant in the rich man's house. That she's there, she's doing it, she knows that's her role. She's looking after the kids, she even calls them her own kids. This is my house, cleaning my house, but she knows that's not her real home. She has her own home somewhere out in the countryside. So this is that feeling that we want to cultivate a little bit of a feeling of alienation, that we don't really belong here. This isn't our real home. Not too much. And we know alienation is a real problem. It can be a real psychological problem, for kids especially. But a little bit as spiritual seekers, that feeling, no, I want to go back. This isn't my real home. This isn't really who I am. I'm simply playing this role. And it happens to everyone. It happens to monks also. We become so identified with, I'm a Swami, I'm this and that, head of a center and everything. There's also the false identification and ignorance. That's not who we really are. It may be better than identifying with some very worldly thing, but still, we can say we're all devotees. Good. It's a very good type of false identification. What are we really? Take off the mask, and then we have to find out who we really are when we eliminate all of these external things. So we see that these great souls, these are the ones who have done it. The Sri Ramakrishna, he gave us so many hints that he had finished with the game long earlier. He used to talk about this type of card game where you give out a lot of cards and you add them up. And if your number is too high, then you're out of the game. So he used to laugh with the Keshav. He said, "You're all very clever. You're still playing the game that I maxed out my number of cards much earlier." But for him, he could sit on the sideline and watch. He thought that that was a much better way to live in the world. And he used to say, those who are playing a game of chess, that they're too involved in it, too identified with it. The person on the sideline who's watching knows the better move to make. So he gave all these different types of illustrations. For him, it was better, this game of musical chairs. You all know the musical chairs? When we were kids, we used to play it. Say there are 10 kids, there'll be 9 chairs. And they go around in a circle with the music playing. As soon as the music stops, they all have to sit in a chair. So each time there'll be one person eliminated. Then they remove another chair and they do it again, another person eliminated. Until there's only one chair and 2 people, and then one wins. So he was happy that he got eliminated early. That was the idea. So he gave so many different stories like that. Touching the granny. There's a game of hide and seek, the Indian style, a little different from our hide and seek, that someone plays the role of the granny, maybe even a real grandmother, and all the kids are blindfolded and they have to touch her. As soon as they touch her, they get to remove the bandage. So we have lots of different illustrations like this. Anyhow, to get back to this idea of the cosmic Leela, this idea that this world is created in play. There's a reason for this. Now, we may say that this is a childish idea, but there's a good reason for this, that we have no logical explanation. We have no logical explanation for why and how this universe has come into being, why it is the way that it is. It's really just completely mystifying how that could have happened, especially the way it turns out. How this universe is the way that it is. The Advaitins, they'll try to kind of skirt the issue, that they'll bring in the idea that, well, it's not really real, that Maya is there, that it causes some type of misunderstanding of everything. It's okay. It has a nice logical beauty to it, but I don't know how satisfying it is for everyone. The dualists, they'll simply say that God created the universe, why ask too many questions? But they also have a problem that God is not supposed to have any desire or any plan. What's the need that God has to create this universe? Purna Kama, that all possible desires would be fulfilled. If God has any desires or needs, he's just like us. So we have this idea that, just out of fun. We read in the Taittiriya Upanishad that Brahman got bored. He looked around, he didn't see anybody else was there, so he thought, let me be many. So then everything came out of that, the whole universe evolved out of that. And then we have this idea that after creating the whole universe, this Brahman will enter into it. So what is the reason for it? No reason. Leela, that also means that there's no logical reason. That just for fun, this is the nature of the Divine Mother. This is the way Sri Ramakrishna would explain it. We have this term that's used, the kavi. Kavi is used, one of the terms that's used for Ishvara, for God. Just like a poet has a natural inclination to write poetry. You say, why do you do it? I have this artistic nature. Huh? They just like to do it. There's no real way to explain it, that this creative impulse is part of this Saguna Brahman, part of the Divine Mother, the creative impulse, and it's just done out of play or out of sport, we can say. So this is part of this idea of Leela, that it's great fun for the Lord to play with this universe and all beings in it, and we have been mesmerized by all of that, so we don't know that we're part of this play. We think that we're all independent and doing everything on our own. We don't realize that we're simply here for the enjoyment of God. It's a funny idea. I'll admit that. but it has its beauty to it, this idea. And we have to remain in ignorance in order for the play to go on. Many people would ask Sri Ramakrishna, why is it that Divine Mother, she can give liberation to anybody at any time? Why doesn't she do it? So Thakur would say, she doesn't want this play to end. The granny doesn't allow all the kids to touch her. She runs around and tries to avoid, otherwise the whole game is over. So this is the way Sri Ramakrishna talks about it, that it's fun. The Lord is just playing like a child. A child, you'll see, will go to the beach and they'll take the wet sand and they'll make a little castle, or they'll take a bucket and they'll turn it upside down and everything, and then they knock it down. They're finished with it. Just out of fun. No attachment to it or anything like that. Thakur talks about the child who has some little trinket or something. Somebody comes along and says, will you give it to me? They say, no, I won't give it to you. It's mine. And somebody else comes and he just throws it at him. So we wonder, where's the logic behind this universe? This idea of lila, it says, okay, don't be too logical. It's a little bit just like a play, because we don't know why and how things happen. We always ask that question. Why do such good people suffer? Why do these nasty people seem to get everything? And it's all part of the play. So Sri Ramakrishna, he used to speak in these terms. There was a conversation that took place between Thakur and Keshav Sen of the Brahmo Samaj. Sri Ramakrishna was talking about Mother Kali. Bondage and liberation are both of her making. By her maya, worldly people become entangled in lust and greed, and again, through her grace, they attain liberation. Then he sang the very nice song, beautiful song of Ram Prasad. This is about the flying kites. Now, you know this game of flying kites. They have it in India, they have it other places. There was a famous book and movie on kite flying about Afghanistan. They also do it too. You fly your kite and you try to cut the other string. So they'll put some paste and some sharp things on the string, so you can kind of go back and forth and cut the other string. And the one who's holding the kite last is the one who wins. And if your kite gets cut and flies off, then you're out of the game. But in this song, it's the exact opposite. Those who get cut and get free, they're the ones who live. So the ones who are successful. So the song ends, out of 100,000 kites, at best, but one or two break free. And thou dost laugh and clap thy hands, O mother, watching them. When favoring wind, says Ram Prasad, the kite set loose will speedily be borne away to the infinite across the sea of the world. And then he goes on. The Divine Mother is always playful and sportive. This universe is her play. She is self-willed and must always have her own way. She is full of bliss. She gives freedom to one out of 100,000. Then there's one of the Brahmo devotees. He says, but sir, if she likes, she can give freedom to all. Why then has she kept us bound to the world? Sri Ramakrishna, that is her sweet will. She wants to continue playing with her creatures. And then he talks about that game of hide and seek. And he says, all of the fun comes to an end if all touch the granny. If all touch her, then how can the game go on? That displeases her. Her pleasure is in continuing the game. So Thakur spoke in these terms of this Leela, very often with the Divine Mother, and very often specifically with Mother Kali. For some reason, he associated Mother Kali, not this ferocious Mother Kali that we often see, but this playful Mother Kali, that all this is play, this mad Mother Kali of her play. So we find that in this play, the mother enjoys it as long as we're enjoying it. See, this is the other thing. And we don't know it's a play, but part of it, it's fun. So she talks about her child who's out playing with his games and with his friends and everything, and she's content to let him play. But as soon as he gets tired of the game and longs for the mother and calls for the mother, then she comes. So this is all different ways of expressing this feeling that this life is this somehow play-like, that on this human level, that all of us are leading a type of, I don't want to say inauthentic, but a life where we don't really know who we are. We know ourselves as the role that we play in this lifetime. And fortunate ones are the ones who say, no, I want to know who I really am. That what happens when I take off this costume? Who am I really? So this is that desire for this play to come to an end. I mentioned the song that Swamiji sang to Sri Ramakrishna. This indicates that Swamiji had this feeling from a young age, even before all of this working for Sri Ramakrishna, the Divine Mother, and everything. This monocholo nijo niketoni, let us go back once more, O mind, to our own abode. Here in this foreign land of earth, why should we wander aimlessly in strangers' guise? So this is a mood that comes from a type of disaffection with the world. Now for Swamiji, after his father passed away, he went through that terrible period of poverty. Then it became more and more acute. And he had a tremendous desire to actually run off and renounce the world, become a monk during Sri Ramakrishna's lifetime. This is something that Thakur didn't talk about too much, but he understood it just by looking at Naren. And there's one very touching incident where Narendra goes to Sri Ramakrishna. Thakur knows that he's about to do it, and he sings this beautiful song that it's a Vaishnava song, huh? It's Radha, where are you going, my Krishna, please don't go, something like that. And as Swamiji, with tears in his eyes, he understood that he couldn't leave Sri Ramakrishna at that time. But he always had that longing to cast off all of this. And the funny thing is, he was given the biggest burden and the biggest role to play in this Leela. So this, for us, we have to see a little bit of the hollowness of the world and the inability of this world to fully satisfy us. And this understanding that we have a real home, we have our real nature, other than this role that we play in life. Okay, before we get too far, let me read the poem so we know a little bit more about what was in Swamiji's mind and heart. Ever rising, ever falling with the waves of time, still rolling on I go, from fleeting scene to scene ephemeral, with life's currents ebb and flow. Oh, I am sick of this unending force, these shows, they please no more, this ever running, never reaching, nor even a distant glimpse of shore. From life to life I'm waiting at the gates, alas, they open not. Dim are my eyes with vain attempt to catch one ray long sought. On little life's high narrow bridge I stand and see below. The struggling, crying, laughing throng, for what? No one can know. In front yon gates stand, frowning dark, and say, no farther, away. This is the limit, tempt not fate, bear it as best you may. Go mix with them and drink this cup and be as mad as they. Who dares to know but comes to grief, stop then and with them stay. Alas, for me I cannot rest, this floating bubble, earth, its hollow form, its hollow name, its hollow death and birth, for me is nothing. How I long to go beyond the crust of name and form. Ah, open the gates, to me they open must. Open the gates of light, O Mother, to me thy tired son. I long, oh long to return home. Mother, my play is done. You sent me out in the dark to play and wore a frightful mask. Then hope departed, terror came, and play became a task. Tossed to and fro, from wave to wave, in the seething, surging sea of passions strong and sorrows deep, grief is and joy to be. Where life is living death, alas, and death, who knows, but 'tis another start, another round of this old wheel of grief and bliss. Where children dream bright golden dreams, too soon to find them dust, and I look back to hope long lost, and life a mass of rust. Too late the knowledge age doth gain, scarce from the wheel we're gone, when fresh young lives put their strength to the wheel, which thus goes on, from day to day and year to year. 'Tis but delusion's toy, false hope its murder, its motor, desire, knave, its spokes are grief and joy. I go adrift and know not whither, save me from this fire. Rescue me, merciful Mother, from floating with desire. Turn not to me thy awful face, 'tis more than I can bear. Be merciful and kind to me, to chide my faults forbear. Take me, O Mother, to those shores where strifes forever cease, beyond all sorrow, beyond tears, beyond even heavenly bliss, whose glory neither sun nor moon, nor stars that twinkle bright, nor flash of lightning can express, they but reflect its light. Let nevermore delusive dreams veil off thy face from me. My play is done, O Mother. Break my chains and make me free. This one line, to me, is very significant. This ever running, never reaching, nor even a distant glimpse of shore. It has a couple of different meanings, for me at least. One is that we're always running around trying to satisfy our desires. And that one thing that will satisfy it always seems out of our reach. We never quite get there. This is one idea. The other is that even this idea of God realization, the longing to have that vision, that experience, always seems a little bit, the self, I want to know the self, I want to know Brahman. The closer we get, always a little behind us. I've mentioned many before, like trying to see the back of our head by spinning around. We can become that, we are that, we can realize that, but this longing to have that understanding, to do it through the mind, is always a little bit out of our reach, beyond mind and speech. So this ever running, never reaching, is always a little bit that feeling that we have. Why we want to have that realization? Why is it just always outside of us? We have to realize that the mind has to become still and quiet, and we realize our own nature. But still, a little bit of that feeling is there also. There's a beautiful letter. It captures this spirit, written by Swami Parameshanandaji. He was the Holy Mother's disciple. I've spoken about him many times. He was a wonderful songwriter. He wrote that song that was sung in the beginning and wrote beautiful letters. He says, "He who created this world in play is a great joker, as well as an ocean of nectar. An infinite number of souls are running about, suffering from hunger and thirst. Everything is near at hand, but they throw it all away out of greed for imaginary food. What a funny play. Once I saw a certain man who had a bad cough. When he smoked tobacco, he would cough and cough to the point of exhaustion. Then he would wait a little and again take another puff from the pipe. At the shock of this cough, my breathing nearly stopped. Then, seeing this play of the divine jester, I felt great joy. What an amazing phenomenon this entire universe is." Then another letter. "After suffering greatly, I say to him," that means Sri Ramakrishna as Mahamaya, "Dear sir, please remove the lid of this pot a little." That means this veil of Maya. He replies, "One should lift oneself up by one's own self." And it's quoting from the Gita. "See what mischief he has been staging this play for millions of years, and now he says, forget the whole thing. Can anyone do that? He has held us down by the neck and forced us to witness his magic show, and now we are to forget the whole thing. what a cruel joke. So this is all part of this Maya, of this mad mother. We wonder sometimes why there's so much suffering in this world. It's hard to say this is all done in play and everything, but those who experience the world this way, it's a little bit easier for them. Anyhow, it may be that all of this suffering and everything is so that we can come to that conclusion that let me get out of it. It's all meant to bring that type of vairagya. Sri Ramakrishna, his attitude was a little less dramatic and melancholy. And Swamiji was really, all this, let me get out of this suffering, this burden and everything. Thakur enjoyed the play a little bit. So as I said, he was the kid who lost the game and was happy about it. Could just watch and everything. You know, last night my Phillies lost in the World Series. And I was thinking, good, it's over. I was so involved in watching the games and everything. Yeah, I said, now free. I don't have to worry about any of that. So this was Thakur's attitude. I've already scored too many points. I'm out of the game. Now I'm free to just enjoy it. But when he played, he was the expert player. This is the other thing. If we have to play this game of life, then we have to do it well. We have to play our part, knowing that it's a part. We have to play it as perfectly as possible. And this, again, was what Sri Ramakrishna told us, that without any attachment, half of the suffering is due to attachment anyhow. Without any of that, we have to play this role and be the detached type of player. So his message was not to withdraw from the world. We have to embrace this role that we play. What else can we do? We can't all run off to the forest and everything. We'll play another role if we do that. So to play the game with full knowledge that it's a game, maintain the attitude of an unconcerned witness, and all the time know that we're something else. Just like the maidservant, she never forgets that she has her own home. Someplace else, her own children, her own family, everything. But she has no choice. She has to work in the big city and make a little money, and this is the role that she has to play. So what do we learn from all of this? One, from this philosophical point of view, that there's no good answer. There's no good answer. That all of the schools of Vedanta struggle with this. We can say for Advaita Vedanta, no problem that I am he. No problem that the self-knowledge is directly experienceable, that I am that pure consciousness, the mind will quiet down and everything. Still, we won't know about this universe. Thakur says so many times, who can understand the ways of God, how this comes into being and why it is the way it is. And so we have to bring in some idea of Maya or play or something like that. So it gives us a little different way of understanding things. For me, one of the great lessons of all this is that we have to stop asking some of these questions. This is what Thakur said to M so many times, that stop this arguing, reasoning and everything, trying to figure out everything logically through the mind, that it can't be done. It won't add up. This is also that always running and never reaching type of thing. So we look upon this world as a kind of stage. We're actors on that stage. And we play our roles as best as we can, but we know that it's just a role. So when we don't know it, that's the tragedy. And then we get so caught up that when our role is to suffer, we suffer. What does it mean to not get too caught up? I am the witness, to be the observer of everything that's taking place, and to know that everything will finish. See, if it's a play, it has a beginning and an end. We know that every situation that we're in will come to an end. This too shall end. When I was young, my mother used to quote that to me. This is a very famous old statement, I think, an old Persian statement, that this too shall end. I would say, but Mom, this is the situation that I'm in. You know, the horror said, don't worry, it'll end. And one day you'll look back on it and you'll laugh. It'll come. So this play will come to an end, So why get too wrapped up in it? Now, ultimately, there's kind of a joke behind all of this, that when we take off the mask, who do we find? Thakur said, when you peel the onion, peel the onion looking for Ami. Ami means I in Bengali. What do you find? Tini. You find God there. You find that this is the ultimate joke, cosmic joke, that the Lord has been playing. When God creates this universe and enters it, that He's playing each and every role. Now, how do we understand this? We're so sure that, no, it's me. Don't tell me anything else. It's me. But those who have had this highest experience, they know that the real self is one with that infinite absolute reality. So if we can at least, at some point, step back and observe the play. We're participants and observers at the same time. If we can do that, it makes things a little easier. Another letter from Swami Paramahansa. Life is nothing but a theater. Don't you see how many charming scenes are visible in each act? Once the painful events have passed, the memories no longer seem painful. It is as if they were also pleasant events. In this way, the final scene will come one day. After dancing and singing, laughing and weeping, we will have finished our duties and will enter the dressing room. There we will meet Ramakrishna, Mother, Swamiji, and the rest. And remembering all the thousands and thousands of past days, we will have a big laugh. When we go back and look at the life of Swamiji and see this very strong feeling he had throughout his life, that he was more than this role that he had to play. And this feeling to cast everything off, this tremendous longing for freedom that we see in Swamiji's life. This is really, I think, what distinguished him from all of the other direct disciples. The tremendous longing to throw off this burden of Maya, of ignorance. And yet he was given the biggest task of all of them. So that was one of the great dilemmas in Swamiji's life. And we see throughout this longing that he had to just go away. When he first traveled through the Himalayas and throughout India, he kept even changing his name. So his dearest, most beloved brother disciples wouldn't even know who he was and where he was going. And how he said, always I wanted to go to some mountain cave, spend my life in meditation, or later just to write some books, and then something always would come and draw me back. When he had his samadhi in Kashipur, that he said, goal in life, I want to remain like that. That's my true nature. I want to remain in that samadhi. And Thakur said, no, you have work to do. And then, when Thakur was on his deathbed, he wrote, he could hardly write at all. He wrote, scratched that out like a little child's handwriting. And Naren will teach people. And so I said, no, I'll do no such thing. He had no desire to do anything like that. And Thakur said, no, you'll have to. Your very bones will make you do it. You have no choice in this. This is that role that you have to play in here. So this is something that we find throughout Swamiji's life, that this desire to cast everything off, to really experience that ultimate type of freedom. So this covering, and this covering was also a trick of Sri Ramakrishna. He said, the Divine Mother, that I'm going to keep all of this locked up. You have to do her work and everything. Then this veil will be removed. And we see how it happened little by little with the different experiences that Swamiji had, as I mentioned in Amarnath and Kir Bhavani and other places, that whatever missionary zeal he had was really gone. And really, we sometimes think that Swamiji was so ready to go to the West and to go to the Parliament of Religions. He said, brother, this is all for me, all of that. But when we see that even after he had a vision of Sri Ramakrishna pointing, go to the West, that he had his doubts. And then all the money was raised by his Madrasi disciples. He raised all that money, and doubt came. He said, no, you give all of this money away. Give it to the poor, and if it's mother's will that I really should go, then the money will come again. So it came again, still doubts. The only thing that really made him know that, is this really Thakur's will or my will, was Holy Mother. When he wrote to Holy Mother, she said, yes, my child. This is Thakur's will, you go. So he went. Then the second visit to the West. See, this poem is written during the first visit. Why did he go back for the second visit? They forced him. His health was bad. Again, not that same missionary zeal. The health was bad. He went back. But when he came, when he saw his brother disciple, Swami Ramananda, he said, brother, I'm giving everything over to you. And you'll be the president, and now I'm free. I've done, and so many of his letters, he wrote, now that I see that my machinery is in good working order, I'm ready to give up everything. So that desire was there so long. I'm going to finish this morning by reading, I think, the most beautiful letter that Swamiji wrote, not the whole thing, to Josephine MacLeod. This is April 18th, 1900. So this is 2 years before his passing away. I am well, very well mentally. I feel the rest of the soul more than that of the body. The battles are lost and won. I've bundled my things and am waiting for the great deliverer. Shiva, O Shiva, carry my boat to the other shore. After all, Joe, I'm only the boy who used to listen with rapt wonderment to the wonderful words of Ramakrishna under the banyan at Dakshineshwar. That is my true nature. Works and activities, doing good and so forth, are all superimpositions. Now I again hear his voice, the same old voice thrilling my soul. Bonds are breaking, love dying, work becoming tasteless. The glamour is off life. Only the voice of the Master calling, I come, Lord, I come. Let the dead bury the dead. Follow thou me. I come, my beloved Lord, I come. Yes, I come. Nirvana is before me. I feel it at times, the same infinite ocean of peace without a ripple, a breath. I'm glad I was born, glad I suffered so, glad I did make big blunders, glad to enter peace. I leave none bound, I take no bonds, whether this body will fall and release me, or I enter into freedom in the body. The old man is gone, gone forever, never to come back again. The guide, the guru, the leader, the teacher has passed away. The boy, the student, the servant is left behind. You understand why I do not want to meddle with A. Who am I to meddle with anyone, Joe? I've long given up my place as a leader. I have no right to raise my voice. Since the beginning of the year, I have not dictated anything in India. You know that. Many thanks for what you and Mrs. Bull have been to me in the past. All blessings follow you ever. The sweetest moments of my life have been when I was drifting. I am drifting again, with the bright, warm sun ahead and masses of vegetation around. And in the heat, everything is so still, so calm, and I am drifting languidly in the warm heart of the river. I dare not make a splash with my hands or feet for fear of breaking this marvelous stillness that makes you feel sure it is an illusion. Behind my work was ambition, behind my love was personality, behind my purity was fear, behind my guidance the thirst of power. Now they are vanishing, and I drift. I come, Mother, I come, in thy warm bosom, floating wheresoever thou takest me, in the voiceless, in the strange, in the wonderland, I come, a spectator, no more an actor. Oh, it is so calm. My thoughts seem to come from a great, great distance in the interior of my own heart. They seem like rains, distant whispers, and peace is upon everything. Sweet, sweet peace, like that one feels for a few moments just before falling into sleep, when things are seen and felt like shadows, without fear, without love, without emotion. Peace that one feels alone, surrounded with statues and pictures. I come, Lord, I come. The world is, but not beautiful nor ugly, but as sensations without exciting any emotion. O Joe, the blessedness of it. Everything is good and beautiful, for things are all losing their relative proportions to me. My body among the first. Om, that existence. I hope great things to come to you all in London and Paris, fresh joy, fresh benefits to mind and body. With love, as ever to you and Mrs. Bull, yours faithfully, Vivekananda. Let's take a few minutes for silent meditation now. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhave. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. May all beings be happy. May all be free from disease. May all realize the highest good. May none suffer from misery. Om peace, peace, peace be unto all. Next Sunday, Swami Swahananda will speak on the challenge of spiritual life. And before we go to the basement for refreshments, I mentioned briefly the song that Thakur loves so much, the Bengali song, Ram Prasad song, that everything is done according to thy will, O Mother, Shokli Tomari Ichha. We'll hear a very beautiful translation of that song into Kannada. Sarame, you can come. Yeah, sit in the front. Yeah. Or so they can hear through the, yeah, sit there. Yeah. No, but they won't be able to hear other people. Yeah, yeah. You can sit here, it's okay.
ಇಚ್ಛೆಯಂತೆ ನಡೆದಿರಲು ನೀನೆ ಭವಸಾಗರವ ದಾಟಿಸುವ ಹಡಗು. ನಿನ್ನ ಇಚ್ಛೆಯ ನೀನು ಪೂರೈಸುತ್ತಿರಲು, ನಿನ್ನ ಇಚ್ಛೆಯ ನೀನು ಪೂರೈಸುತ್ತಿರಲು, ತಮ್ಮ ಗೈಮೆಯಿದೆಂದು ತಿಳಿವರಿ ಜನರು. ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ನಿನ್ನಿಚ್ಛೆ. ಕೆಸರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಸಲಗವನು ಹಿಡಿಯುವಳು ನೀನು, ಹೆಳವನನು ಗಿರಿಯ ತುದಿಗೊಯ್ಯುವಳು ನೀನು. ಹಲವರಿಗೆ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಪದವಿತ್ತು, ಹಲವರನು ಭವಜಲದಿ ಸುಳಿಯೊಳಗೆ ಎಸೆಯುವಳು ನೀನು. ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ನಿನ್ನಿಚ್ಛೆಯಂತೆ ನಡೆದಿರಲು, ನೀನೆ ಭವಸಾಗರವ ದಾಟಿಸುವ ಹಡಗು. ನೀ ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ನಿನ್ನಿಚ್ಛೆ. ನೀನು ಚಾಲಕ ಶಕ್ತಿ, ನಾನೊಂದು ಯಂತ್ರ, ನಾನೊಂದು ಬರಿಯ ಮನೆ, ನೀನದರ ಮಂತ್ರ. ನೀನು ಚಾಲಕ ಶಕ್ತಿ, ನಾನೊಂದು ಯಂತ್ರ, ನಾನೊಂದು ಬರಿಯ ಮನೆ, ನೀನದರ ಮಂತ್ರ. ನಾನೊಂದು ರಥವಾಗೆ, ನೀನದರ ರಥಿಕ. ನೀ ನಡೆಸೆ ನಾ ನಡೆವೆ ನಿನ್ನದಿ ಲೋಕ. ನಾನೊಂದು ರಥವಾಗೆ, ನೀನದರ ರಥಿಕ. ನಾನೊಂದು ರಥವಾಗೆ, ನೀನದರ ರಥಿಕ. ನೀ ನಡೆಸೆ ನಾ ನಡೆವೆ ನಿನ್ನದಿ ಲೋಕ. ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ನಿನ್ನಿಚ್ಛೆಯಂತೆ ನಡೆದಿರಲು, ನೀನೆ ಭವಸಾಗರವ ದಾಟಿಸುವ ಹಡಗು. ನಿನ್ನ ಇಚ್ಛೆಯ ನೀನು ಪೂರೈಸುತ್ತಿರಲು, ತಮ್ಮ ಗೈಮೆಯಿದೆಂದು ತಿಳಿವರಿ ಜನ.